Have you ever felt like a man's energy suddenly changed toward you, like he became more drawn to you without you even trying? One day he's distant or indifferent, and the next he's seeking your attention, drawn to you in a way he can't explain. It's not magic and it's not luck. It's psychology, specifically the hidden forces of attraction that Carl Jung uncovered decades ago. And once you understand them, you'll never feel powerless in love again. There's a reason why some people effortlessly pull others toward them, why attraction deepens without chasing, why connection intensifies without pleading for attention. It all comes down to the unconscious mind, the part of us that operates beneath the surface, guiding our emotions, desires, and even who we fall for. Carl Jung, one of history's most profound psychologists, revealed that human attraction isn't just about looks or personality, it's about archetypes, the collective unconscious, and the hidden parts of ourselves we project onto others. He discovered that we're all influenced by deep, universal patterns, like the anima, a man's inner feminine, and the shadow, the traits we suppress, that shape who we're drawn to. When a man's energy shifts toward you unexpectedly, it's often because you've subconsciously tapped into one of these hidden forces. Maybe you mirrored a part of himself he doesn't fully understand. Maybe you triggered an emotional response buried deep in his psyche. Or maybe, without realizing it, you stopped trying to force his attention, and that's when he started giving it freely. The truth? There's a powerful psychological trigger that, when used right, can make him shift his energy toward you naturally. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding how the unconscious mind works and using that knowledge to create a magnetic pull. In this video, we're diving into Jung's most fascinating discoveries about love and attraction. You'll learn the one thing that makes a man's energy change almost instantly, why most women accidentally push love away without realizing it, and how to align yourself with the hidden forces that make him see you differently. If you've ever wanted to feel that shift, where he leans in, listens closer, and starts seeing you in a way no one else does, this is how it happens. Let's begin. 1. The psychology behind energy shifts. Carl Jung's groundbreaking work in psychology revealed that much of human attraction operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness. One of his most compelling theories, the concept of the shadow, explains why we often feel inexplicably drawn to certain people. The shadow represents the parts of ourselves we've repressed or denied, whether due to societal conditioning, past experiences, or personal insecurities. These hidden aspects don't disappear. Instead, they linger in the unconscious, seeking expression. When we encounter someone who embodies those very traits we've suppressed, a powerful magnetic pull occurs. It's as if they're carrying a piece of our lost selves, and we can't help but feel both intrigued and unsettled by their presence. This is why you might notice a man becoming more attentive when you display confidence if he struggles with self-doubt, or drawn to your warmth if he's closed off emotionally. You're mirroring a part of him he hasn't fully embraced, and that reflection is irresistibly compelling. This dynamic becomes even more fascinating when we consider Jung's theory of the Anima and Animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies that reside within each of us. For men, the Anima represents their unconscious feminine qualities, intuition, emotional depth, and creativity. Since many men are socialized to suppress these traits in favor of logic and stoicism, they often project their anima onto the women they're attracted to. When a woman embodies the qualities a man has disconnected from within himself, he experiences her as captivating on a level he can't quite articulate. It's not just about physical attraction, it's a soul-level recognition. This is why energy shifts can feel so sudden and intense. You're not just interacting with his conscious mind, but with the deepest, most hidden parts of his psyche. The moment you trigger this unconscious recognition, his behavior begins to change without either of you realizing why. He might become more protective, more curious about your thoughts, or even more emotionally vulnerable. These shifts aren't the result of manipulation or strategy, they're the natural response to an energy that resonates with his inner world. This is the key difference between chasing someone and effortlessly attracting them. Chasing relies on external validation, constantly proving your worth, seeking his attention, or molding yourself to fit his expectations. But when you operate from a place of wholeness, embodying the traits he's unconsciously seeking, the pull becomes organic. You're no longer trying to convince him of your value, you're allowing him to discover it within himself. This explains why energy shifts often happen when you least expect them, when you stop overextending, when you focus on your own growth, or when you simply allow yourself to be authentically you. It's in these moments that you're most likely to mirror his hidden desires or unexpressed emotions. For example, if he's accustomed to relationships where he feels needed, your independence might unsettle him at first, but it will also awaken a deeper curiosity. Or if he's used to women who play games, your genuine emotional honesty might disarm him in a way that draws him closer. These reactions aren't coincidences. They're the unconscious mind's way of guiding him toward what feels most real and resonant. Understanding this psychological undercurrent transforms how you approach attraction. Instead of focusing on what to say or do to win his attention, you learn to cultivate the energy that naturally aligns with his unconscious needs. This isn't about changing who you are. It's about becoming more fully yourself, because that's where true magnetic power lies. When you stop contorting yourself to fit his expectations and instead embrace your own depth, you become a mirror for the parts of him that are waiting to be acknowledged. And that's when the real shift happens, not because you've chased him, but because you've awakened something within him that he can't ignore. 2. The one thing that makes his energy shift. The most transformative shift in any relationship begins not with what you do to capture his attention, but with how you choose to embody your most authentic self. At the heart of Carl Jung's work lies a profound truth. Attraction is not about effort, but about resonance. The one thing that makes his energy shift toward you, sometimes almost overnight, is when you fully step into your true feminine essence, or masculine essence, if that's your natural energy. This isn't about performing femininity in a stereotypical way. It's about embracing the core qualities of receptivity, intuition, and emotional depth that exist within you. When you do this, something remarkable happens. You activate what Jung called the Anima projection within him. The Anima is a man's inner feminine, the part of him that connects to creativity, feeling, and vulnerability. Because society often conditions men to suppress these qualities, they unconsciously seek them out in the women they're drawn to. When you embody these traits naturally, you become a living reflection of what his psyche is yearning to integrate. This explains why the moment you stop overgiving, chasing, or seeking validation, his energy begins to shift in response. These behaviors, though often rooted in genuine care, actually disrupt the natural flow of attraction because they come from a place of lack rather than wholeness. When you're constantly trying to prove your worth or earn his affection, you're no longer a mystery to be discovered, you're a puzzle he's already solved. But when you pull back and focus on your own fulfillment, pursuing your passions, nurturing your inner world, and refusing to shrink yourself for his comfort, you create an unconscious fascination. Jung described this as the power of the unknown, the magnetic pull of what isn't immediately revealed. A man's imagination is far more powerful than any overt display of affection. When he can't predict your every move or emotion, when he senses you have a rich inner life that doesn't revolve around him, that's when he starts to lean in. Consider the real-life dynamic of a woman who stops begging for attention and instead radiates quiet self-assurance. At first, the man might seem confused or even distant. After all, his ego is accustomed to her seeking him out. But beneath the surface, something more significant is happening. Her lack of pursuit forces him to confront a void he didn't realize existed. Where he once took her presence for granted, he now wonders what she's thinking, why she seems so at peace without his validation. This isn't a game, it's a natural recalibration of energy. By choosing herself, she's inadvertently shown him that she's not just another option, she's a presence he has to actively choose. And because her confidence mirrors the self-possession he may lack in certain areas of his own life, the attraction deepens on an unconscious level. The key to making this shift sustainable lies in understanding that feminine energy isn't passive, it's powerfully receptive. It doesn't chase, but it also doesn't close itself off. It's the art of being open to connection while never abandoning your center. This is why emotional independence is so intoxicating to the masculine psyche. A woman who knows her worth doesn't need a man to complete her, she invites him to complement her. That distinction changes everything. When he senses that your happiness isn't his responsibility, he's free to desire you without the weight of obligation. He starts to associate you with inspiration rather than pressure, with expansion rather than demand. And that's when the most profound energy shifts occur, not because you've manipulated his feelings, but because you've become a mirror for the wholeness he's unconsciously seeking in himself. This principle extends beyond romantic relationships into every dynamic where attraction matters. Friendships, professional connections, even the relationship you have with yourself. The more you embrace your authentic energy, the more you give others permission to do the same. And in that space of mutual authenticity, the bonds that form are unshakable because they're built not on need, but on recognition. So if you want to shift his energy, start by shifting your own. Stop asking for permission to take up space. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Instead, focus on cultivating a life so vibrant that his attention becomes a welcome addition, not a necessity. That's when you'll see the change. Not because you've forced it, but because you've become impossible to ignore. 3. The mirror effect, how to make him reflect your energy. One of Jung's most profound psychological insights reveals that we don't just see people as they are, we see them through the lens of our own unconscious material. This phenomenon, known as projection, explains why attraction often feels so mysterious and why people's energy shifts in response to our own inner changes. When you understand that people will mirror back to you what you're unconsciously putting out into the world, you gain access to one of the most powerful tools for transformation in relationships. If you find yourself wishing your partner would show more passion, the most effective approach isn't to beg or demand, it's to first cultivate that passionate energy within yourself. When you start pursuing your own interests with genuine enthusiasm, when you reconnect with activities that light you up, something remarkable happens. He begins to reflect that same energy back to you. This isn't manipulation, it's the natural law of psychological resonance at work. Your vibrant energy subconsciously gives him permission to access and express those same qualities within himself that may have been dormant or suppressed. The same principle applies if what you desire is deeper commitment. Many people make the mistake of trying to negotiate or convince their partner to be more devoted, not realizing this very approach comes from a place of lack that actually repels the security they seek. The counterintuitive truth is that commitment is drawn to confidence, not neediness. When you stop anxiously monitoring his level of investment and instead cultivate an unshakable sense of your own worth, you create a powerful energetic shift. He begins to sense on an unconscious level that you're not someone who will settle for half-hearted attention, not because you've said so, but because your entire way of being communicates it. This is why women who walk away from situations that don't serve them often find their partners suddenly stepping up. It's not the absence that creates the change, but the presence of self-respect that makes the absence meaningful. Putting this into practice requires moving beyond words into the realm of embodied energy. The first step is becoming a keen observer of how people respond when you shift your own vibration. You'll notice that when you're feeling particularly confident and self-assured, others treat you differently, not because you've announced your confidence, but because you're radiating it in subtle ways through your posture, your eye contact, the way you occupy space. This is where most people go wrong. They try to use logic and persuasion to create change when energy communicates far more powerfully than words ever could. If you want to test this theory, try a simple experiment. For 1 week, focus exclusively on cultivating within yourself the very qualities you wish to see in him. If it's more romance you desire, become more romantic toward your own life. Dress in ways that make you feel sensual, create beautiful spaces, indulge in small daily pleasures. Then simply observe. You'll likely find that without any discussion or prompting, he begins initiating more romantic gestures. The magic of this approach lies in its indirectness. When you try to convince someone verbally to change, you engage their resistance, the ego's natural defense against perceived control. But when you embody the change you wish to see, you bypass their defenses entirely and speak directly to their unconscious. This is why the most transformative shifts often happen when we stop trying to force them and instead become the living example of what we seek. A woman who wants her partner to be more emotionally available will make far more progress by first becoming fully present with her own emotions than by pleading with him to open up. As she develops this capacity within herself, one of two things will happen. Either he'll begin to mirror this newfound emotional availability, or the relationship will naturally dissolve because their energies are no longer compatible. Both outcomes serve her highest good. This mirroring principle extends far beyond romantic relationships into every interaction we have. The people in our lives serve as constant reflections showing us where we're whole and where we're still operating from lack. When you find yourself frustrated by someone's behavior, the most powerful question you can ask is, what part of me does this reflect? The coworker who seems dismissive may be mirroring your own unexpressed self-doubt. The friend who flakes on plans may be reflecting your own ambivalence about the friendship. This isn't to say we should tolerate poor treatment, but rather that our outer world always shows us the truth about our inner world. When you change the energy you bring to your relationships, the relationships themselves must change in response. Not because you've manipulated anyone, but because you've transformed the very fabric of the connection at its energetic core. The practical application of this wisdom is both simple and challenging. It requires us to take radical responsibility for our own energy while releasing attachment to specific outcomes. It means showing up as the person who already has what they desire, not the person who's begging for it. When you can stand firmly in this space, where your energy says, "This is who I am," rather than "please love me," you'll find that the right people respond accordingly. They may not always give you exactly what you want, but they'll give you what you need to grow. And in that growth lies the real magic of relationships, not as a means to complete ourselves, but as mirrors to help us remember our own wholeness. For signs his energy is shifting toward you. One of the most fascinating aspects of psychological attraction is that when a man's energy begins shifting toward you, the signs often appear in subtle yet unmistakable ways before any concrete actions are taken. According to Jung's concept of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that feel too perfectly timed to be random, you might start noticing him appearing in your life more frequently, whether through unexpected messages, chance encounters, or suddenly having mutual interests he never mentioned before. This isn't about stalking or forced interactions. It's the universe's way of revealing an energetic alignment has occurred beneath the surface. His curiosity about you will grow organically. He might ask unexpected questions about your childhood, your dreams, or your opinions on topics he never seemed to care about before. This curiosity represents his unconscious mind recognizing something significant in you, something that resonates with parts of himself he may not even understand yet. Physical cues often provide the most immediate evidence of this energy shift. You might catch him holding eye contact just a second longer than necessary, creating those charged moments where words become unnecessary. His touches may become more intentional, a guiding hand on your back, playful nudges, or finding reasons to bridge the physical distance between you. Even his posture changes when he's around you. He'll orient his body toward you in group settings or mirror your movements without realizing it. More telling than any grand gesture are the small behavioral adjustments, suddenly remembering details you mentioned in passing, texting more consistently, or making time for you when he's busy. These aren't conscious decisions to pursue you, they're unconscious responses to the energetic pull he's experiencing. Perhaps the most intriguing signs come through what Jung called projection, when he starts seeing his ideal qualities reflected in you. You might hear comments like, "You're not like other women," or "There's something different about you," which reveal he's transferring his unconscious desires onto your image. This projection isn't about you pretending to be someone else. It's about you embodying qualities that resonate with his inner world so deeply that he can't help but romanticize them. His protectiveness might increase, not in a possessive way, but in subtle actions like walking you to your car or checking in when he knows you're facing challenges. Even what might appear as jealousy can be a sign of this shift, not the unhealthy, controlling variety, but that slight tension when another man captures your attention, revealing he now sees you as someone worth competing for. The timing of his attention often speaks volumes too. You might notice him reaching out during emotionally significant moments, late at night when defenses are down, or when he's experiencing personal successes or struggles. These aren't random patterns. They indicate you've become someone he associates with emotional authenticity and depth. His communication style may evolve from superficial to substantive, with conversations lasting longer and going deeper than before. Even his humor changes. He'll share inside jokes, tease you playfully, or let you see the goofy side he usually keeps hidden. All these shifts suggest you're no longer just another person in his life. You've become someone who gets to see behind the curtain of his carefully constructed persona. Perhaps the most profound sign is the change in how he makes you feel when you're together. There's a new ease to your interactions, as if you've known each other far longer than you actually have. Silences become comfortable rather than awkward. You might experience what Jung called the collective unconscious, at work, finishing each other's sentences, having the same thoughts simultaneously, or dreaming about each other without explanation. These phenomena suggest your connection operates on more than just a conscious level. Your psyches have begun communicating in a language beyond words. When his energy shifts authentically, you won't need to analyze every interaction for proof, you'll feel it in your bones, the same way you feel the weather changing before you see the clouds move. The certainty comes not from anything he says, but from the undeniable rightness in how you fit together when neither of you is trying to force anything at all. These signs always appear in their own perfect timing, never when we're anxiously watching for them. The paradox is that the more you focus on your own wholeness rather than monitoring his behavior, the more clearly these signals reveal themselves. They're not something you can demand or rush, they're the natural byproduct of two energies coming into alignment. When you stop looking for proof is usually when it appears most abundantly, in unexpected compliments, in his willingness to be vulnerable, in the way his entire presence seems to brighten when you enter the room. These aren't just random acts of affection, they're the unconscious mind's way of signaling that something profound has shifted where it matters most, beneath the surface, where real connection is always born. 5. Common mistakes that block the energy shift. One of the most common pitfalls that prevents genuine energetic shifts in relationships is the tendency to overanalyze every text, interaction, and subtle behavior. This mental obsession creates what Jung might call a psychic barrier. When we're so focused on dissecting his actions through our anxious thoughts, we become completely disconnected from our feminine intuition, that deep inner knowing that guides us far more accurately than overthinking ever could. The paradox is that the more we try to intellectually understand where we stand with someone, the more we actually push the natural flow of connection off course. Analysis comes from the masculine energy within us. It wants to problem solve, categorize, and control. But attraction flourishes in the space of mystery and feeling, not logic and dissection. Every minute spent obsessing over what his last message really meant is a minute you're not present in your own life, radiating the exact energy that would naturally draw him closer. The solution isn't to ignore red flags, but rather to develop enough self-trust that you don't need to decode his behavior. You simply know when something feels right or off, and respond accordingly from that centered place. Another major block comes from the well-intentioned but ultimately counterproductive urge to fix or change him. This violates one of Jung's core principles, that attraction thrives when we allow others to be exactly who they are, without our interference. The moment you take on the role of therapist, savior, or project manager in the relationship, you disrupt the natural polarity that creates spark. Men, and all people really, can sense when they're being subtly pressured to change, and it triggers an unconscious resistance, even if they can't articulate why they're pulling away. This doesn't mean you should tolerate bad behavior, but rather that real transformation only happens when it comes from within him, not from your nudging. The feminine energy's true power lies in inspiration, not instruction, in being so full of life that he wants to rise to meet your energy, not because you've demanded it, but because your presence calls forth his highest self naturally. The woman who believes a man will change for her is often disappointed. The woman who changes herself and lets him respond to that shift is the one who witnesses real transformation. Perhaps the most insidious block to energetic shifts is the need for his validation to feel complete. This dependency, whether it's for compliments, reassurance, or constant attention, slowly erodes the very mystery and magnetism that drew him in initially. Jung understood that projection and fascination can only thrive when there's space for imagination to play. When you constantly seek confirmation of your worth from him, you leave no room for his unconscious to wonder about you, to project its ideals onto you, to experience you as someone intriguing and multidimensional. The feminine essence is most powerful when it knows its own value without external confirmation. This creates that elusive quality men describe as confidence, but is actually far deeper. It's a rootedness in oneself that cannot be shaken by another's fluctuating attention. The woman who needs nothing from him paradoxically becomes the one he wants to give everything to, not because she's manipulated him, but because she's shown up as a complete person rather than a half-seeking completion. These mistakes all stem from the same root, abandoning our own center in pursuit of love. The overanalyzing, the fixing, the validation-seeking, they're all variations of the same fear that if we don't control the situation, we'll lose what we desire. But Jung's work reminds us that real connection happens in the realm of the unconscious, in those spaces we can't control no matter how hard we try. The path to allowing his energy to shift isn't through more effort or strategy, but through less analyzing, less fixing, less needing. When we stop putting our attention on managing him and his feelings, and instead pour that energy back into ourselves, something miraculous happens. The relationship begins to unfold as it's meant to, not as we've forced it to be. The feminine doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't convince, it inspires. It doesn't cling, it magnetizes. And when we remember this, we stop blocking the very energy shifts we've been waiting for all along. The key is recognizing that these blocks often come from cultural conditioning that tells women their value lies in being chosen rather than in choosing themselves first. Every time you resist the urge to overanalyze, to fix, or to seek validation, you're not just changing a behavior, you're rewiring generations of patterning that said a woman's power comes from her relationship status rather than her relationship with herself. This is why the process can feel so difficult at first. You're not just navigating modern dating, You're healing centuries of distorted feminine power. But with each conscious choice to trust rather than control, to inspire rather than demand, to validate yourself rather than wait for his approval, you reclaim the true magnetic force of your essence, the one that doesn't need to block energy shifts because it naturally creates them. 6. How to keep the energy shift permanent. The secret to making those positive energy shifts permanent lies in maintaining your own energetic integrity, regardless of his behavior or the status of the relationship. This means staying rooted in your authentic feminine essence, or your true masculine energy if that's your natural state, rather than slipping back into old patterns of chasing or proving your worth. The moment you revert to pursuing, overgiving, or making him the center of your emotional world, you disrupt the delicate energetic balance that created the attraction in the first place. Feminine energy is magnetic not when it's passive, but when it's receptive, open to love but not desperate for it, available for connection but not defined by it. This requires developing what Jung might call psychological containment, the ability to hold your center without being thrown off balance by the natural ebbs and flows of a relationship. When you can remain in this grounded space, you become like the steady flame that naturally draws others to your light, rather than the flickering candle that chases after the wind. Beneath the surface of all our relationship patterns lies what Jung termed the shadow, those unhealed parts of ourselves we've disowned or suppressed. These unresolved wounds create invisible barriers to lasting love, often manifesting as self-sabotage, picking emotionally unavailable partners, or recreating familiar but unhealthy dynamics from our past. The work of shadow integration isn't about fixing what's broken, but rather about bringing compassionate awareness to these hidden aspects so they stop running the show from the unconscious. For instance, if you have an unconscious fear of abandonment, you might test relationships until you create the very rejection you fear. If you struggle with unworthiness, you might settle for breadcrumbs of attention while secretly resenting your partner. These patterns don't disappear through positive thinking alone. They require the courageous work of self-examination and emotional honesty. As you do this inner work, you'll notice your external relationships transforming in response, not because the people have changed, but because you're no longer projecting your unresolved wounds onto them. The final key to permanence in energy shifts involves mastering the delicate art of non-attachment. This doesn't mean not caring deeply or being emotionally unavailable. Rather, it's about releasing the desperate need for a particular outcome that ironically pushes love away. Jung understood that neediness creates resistance because it places an unconscious burden on the other person to be responsible for our happiness. When you need him to validate you, commit to you, or make you feel secure, you're actually giving away your power and creating pressure that stifles organic attraction. True feminine power lies in the paradox of being fully open to love while simultaneously being complete without it. This is what creates the space for a man to choose you freely, not out of obligation or guilt, but from genuine desire. The more you cultivate a rich, fulfilling life independent of any relationship, the more attractive you become, not just to potential partners, but to opportunities, friendships, and experiences that align with your highest self. Maintaining these energy shifts ultimately comes down to one fundamental principle: prioritizing your relationship with yourself above all others. This means setting boundaries that honor your needs, walking away from situations that diminish your light, and having the courage to be authentically yourself even when it feels vulnerable. It requires letting go of the fantasy of who he could be and seeing him clearly for who he is, while equally seeing yourself with that same honest clarity. The feminine energy that creates lasting attraction isn't about playing games or hiding your truth. It's about being so rooted in self-knowledge and self-worth that you naturally attract partners who resonate with that vibration. When you stop abandoning yourself to keep others interested, you discover the beautiful irony at the heart of all great relationships. The more you belong to yourself, the more others want to belong with you. This is how temporary shifts become permanent transformations, not by changing him, but by becoming so fully yourself that the right people have no choice but to rise to meet you where you stand. The journey towards sustaining these energetic changes isn't linear. There will be moments of doubt, old patterns that resurface, and tests of your newfound boundaries. But each time you choose self-honor over convenience, authenticity over approval, and wholeness over attachment, you strengthen the energetic muscles that make lasting love possible. Jung reminded us that we don't find fulfillment in others. We find it through the process of becoming our most complete selves, and then sharing that completeness with someone equally whole. This is the alchemy of permanent energy shifts, when two people come together not to complete each other, but to celebrate and challenge each other's already complete being. And it all begins with the courageous decision to stay true to yourself, heal what needs healing, and let love find you rather than chasing after it, because what's meant for you will never pass you by when you're standing firmly in your truth. The most profound truth about relationships, one that Carl Jung's work reveals again and again, is that his energy shifts when you shift first. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about the fundamental law of psychological attraction. You cannot change someone else's energy, you can only change your own, and then watch how the world rearranges itself around you. Every time you've ever felt a man suddenly become more attentive, more drawn to you, or more emotionally open, it wasn't because you convinced him. It was because something in your energy shifted, and his unconscious mind responded in kind. So here's your invitation. For the next 7 days, experiment with this principle. Stop analyzing his behavior. Stop trying to make him feel a certain way. Instead, focus entirely on your own energy, your confidence, your passions, your emotional independence. Embody the qualities you wish to see in him, not to provoke a reaction, but because they're already who you are at your core. Then, simply observe. Notice the subtle, or not so subtle, ways his energy begins to mirror yours. Does he start reaching out more? Does he become more engaged, more curious, more present? Or does he fade away, revealing that he was never truly aligned with the real you in the first place? Either way, you win. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a man's energy shift when you changed yours? Maybe you stopped chasing and suddenly he stepped up. Maybe you embraced your femininity and he became more protective. Or maybe you walked away, and that's when he finally saw your worth. Share your story in the comments below, because when we learn from each other's experiences, we all grow. If this video resonated with you, hit the like button. It helps more people discover this content. And if you're ready to dive deeper into the psychology of love, subscribe and check out my video on Jungian psychology of love, where we explore how archetypes, the shadow, and the unconscious mind shape every relationship in your life. Remember, the most powerful shifts begin within you. So stay true to yourself, trust the process, and watch how the right energy finds its way to you, exactly when you're no longer forcing it.